Hey everybody, it is Trent, and in this video you are going to sit in on a conversation between myself and my friend Taylor. She recently watched The Great Hack, and so we discuss how The Great Hack and how what happened during the 2016 election really was just marketing, and is that ethical, is it right, and what do we really think of social media right now? So I hope you enjoy this hour-long conversation. It's a lot of fun to film and talked about a lot of things that I typically just get super excited about. Enjoy.
Yes, I got it to work.
We did it!
Yay, technology.
Right?
Perfect. Um, oh,
So you were saying
what?
what the movie was about?
Yeah, I can't get my camera to work. So I was starting to talk about what the Great Hack was, um, which kind of went into a deep dive into the company Cambridge Analytica, and they definitely went towards the side of personal political gain and how that company used that. But then literally, I kept thinking about how this essentially is marketing, and how they used it. I was thinking is actually really brilliant because they just fine-tuned literally how marketing is done in today's age, which you were like, let's go live and talk about it. And I'm like, I have so much I would love to talk about. Um, but yeah, so why don't we start with Trent? What did you think of The Great Hack and what's your opinion on it? Oh, wait, hold on. Tabby, turn your camera sideways. Why?
Is she here? I can't see her. Is
No,
mine
she's in the
sideways?
comments.
Nope.
I don't know. Yours looks fine to
Technology.
me. Whatever.
Same.
We're gonna go with this way. So what did you think of The
Um,
Great Hack? Like, what was your takeaways?
yeah, so I watched The Great Hack coming off the back of 2 to 3 months off social media. So I have
Oh,
already kind of been diving into, what kind of, the behavior modification. It's like scary, I feel like, to even talk about, but really behavior modification, right? And the ability to, what you're talking about, use psychographics to figure out. They called them the persuadables in the movie, the
yep.
people who like were in the middle, but who could still be convinced. And I think it's really interesting too that they kind of use strategies of like it wasn't a Cambridge Analytica. It wasn't Cambridge Analytica. It was a bunch of meme accounts that just kind of flooded out memes into the ethos, and then they just watched them spread. And so I think it's interesting that it wasn't necessary, and they like had different pages. I think they mentioned like Blacktivist and a
Yep.
few others like that. But yeah, that's all I have on that, I think, right now.
Yeah, I think it kept going into some really interesting things in the movie. Like, I'm fresh. I just watched it like maybe a couple hours ago. And they were using a lot of blame towards Facebook and towards privacy data, security, and all this stuff. And it almost made me think of the ads that I receive and my news feeds and what those look like. And I had like dual thoughts. One, I enjoy the ads I see because it's based off of stuff that I'm actually searching and I just get more of it. But two, I had to purge my social media first of all
Okay, of
negativity,
what?
things I didn't want to. I mostly
Of like,
purged friends, pages that I followed from like 5 years ago. I essentially cleaned up my friends list and my news feed and what I was following, liking, and engaging with to receive more good stuff instead of all the negative, catchy stuff.
right.
So now I love my feed. I love what I see. It's mostly positivity, motivation, inspirational stories, good news stories, and things like that, which I love.
Can
But
I ask you a
it's all
question?
yeah.
Do you ever feel weird, like if you're in a coffee shop and your Facebook like feed comes up? Like, does it feel personal? Does it like? I have
To
felt
me,
that, right? And so
no. Yeah, go ahead.
it's interesting, right? Because it's like our own place, right? Like no feed, and I kind of mentioned this in the movie too. Is like no feed is the same, right? So everything we're seeing is tailored exactly to us, which I mean is good, right? Like I'm not getting
feminine care product ads, and I would rather get ads that are more relevant to me personally, right? And it's better for the marketer too, because they don't have to waste the money on like just like putting it on TV and then hoping the right demographic sees. Um, oh God, what was my point?
So do you think that it's more of a personal thing? Like you'd rather not have other people see your feed?
Yeah, it feels personal to me, right? I think, and oh my gosh, okay, I'm gonna go down this rabbit hole. So I've been diving into parasocial relationships, which are one-sided relationships between a media creator and an audience, where the audience feels intimately connected to the creator, but the creator has no idea about the individuality of the audience. And so this is like
Interesting.
a very, yeah, it's like a very, very, it's not a new concept actually. The term was coined in the 50s. I forget by which professor, but it was to talk about the relationship between a news broadcaster and their audience. But I think now we've gone to a point with parasocial relationships that like we're able to confuse connection with intimacy, and when we do feel like we like I mean, it's so interesting. I lived in China for a bit, and that
Okay.
was when Casey Neistat was daily vlogging. And I couldn't talk to anyone because I didn't really speak their language. I was trying. But Casey showing up every day, like, he felt like my friend. And that is the parasocial relationship, right? Is like, there was some sort of something in me that got satisfied by this media personality putting themselves out there in a way that made me feel like I was their friend.
Yeah, so you
And
basically created your digital experience as also your social, like, you enjoyed your social interaction that you were having.
I don't wouldn't say I necessarily maybe like enjoyed it. I think looking back at it, it's a very interesting study of how that was able to satisfy in me like a need for connection or friendship or regularity in seeing someone, or it was a constant. You know, it wasn't something that changed. And so in relationships, we need that. And it's interesting that we can now do it on the internet. Now I'm on this whole other kick of, as a creator who understands that I can build this relationship with an audience, right? I've been feeling this moral dilemma, like, am I weaponizing this knowledge that, you know, I mean, it's definitely strategizing. I don't know if it's weaponizing. And that kind of gets back into the film, is like, is it strategy
Yeah,
or
they
is it
talk about it.
weaponizing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because Brittany, I forget her last name from this documentary, she basically was saying that using user data in marketing to the extent that they did was weaponizing. And when she said that, there was a sliver of me that was like, yeah, I could see that, but the majority of me doesn't agree fully with it because it also is based on privacy consent, which, you know, they're trying to remake laws and, you know, all that stuff. But everything that we use social media wise, we agree to use it. And I think for me, at least to some extent, literally we're giving them permission to use everything that we post because it's public anyway. We know
Right?
that social media is public. Like we can make our accounts private, but you know as soon as you post something on the internet, it's there forever. Anyone, I think, our age understands that at a macro level, but maybe in the moment that we're, you know, posting or saying something,
Can
it
we
doesn't
define our
cross our
age?
mind. Oh, I'm
I'm
25, so
25. Okay.
I assume
Yeah,
our
so our age.
generation. Yeah.
Well, no. So I asked. No, I asked this because this is very important, right? When were you born?
94.
94. What month?
May 27th.
May. Okay, so you had a month, give or take a month, 2 months. You had 2 months of being a teenager without the existence of smartphones before the iPhone came out. Came out on June 25th, 2006. And we are the last birth year, 1994, to experience any teenage life without the existence of smartphones. And so we are the last people who are able to bridge the gap between a life before and a life after, because we are the ones who have been evolving the technology to the point that it's at now, right? We don't think about it twice. We haven't stepped back and thought about, is this okay that they're using our data like this? Because it's just the system that we've been given and that we've been playing into. And it's oh, it's so scary. I
That's a
think, I mean,
crazy thought. Because I
yeah,
understand that, because I remember growing up, like, we didn't have smartphones growing up. We didn't have iPads, and I didn't have a computer. Like, that just wasn't it. And then it wasn't until high school that mobile phones, like, were a thing. I finally got a cell phone, but they weren't digital smartphones that they are today. So you're
right.
right. We have evolved as the technology has been created. And, like, kids growing up right now, like, young, like, less than 10 years old, it's just, they're normal. So it's
Yeah.
interesting for us. We're
Well,
literally,
as a
wow.
society, we haven't stepped back, right? We haven't stepped back and gone, okay, what are these things that were built up upon us? Everyone's using them, but we're stuck on something which is called the network effect. That's I can't get off because everyone else is on there. It was interesting when I got off social media. I went to my brother's house and he said something. He was like, something about his daughter, and he was like, "Oh, did you see her playing guitar?" And the expectation of me seeing something that he put on social media is a very interesting thing. Like people expect us to consume, and it starts feeling like a job. Like I read an article. It was something a tied along the lines of like everything is gamified, but nothing is play, right? Because like it was play
Ooh.
back in the day. Like yeah, it's an article on Medium. Everything is gamified, but nothing is play, and um, I mean, I've been talking to people and people feel like it's work, like right? People, and then you have people in the middle, right? I just met this super dope girl, like we've met in like 3 different states so far, and she's like, I really should like be taking social media more seriously. Like I really am doing cool stuff. Like I should, but it's like a lot of effort and it's this, and so people live in this state of like perpetual self pity because we feel like we should be doing more than what we're doing, and it's like by whose standard, by what, because everyone else is doing it. And so getting off, like I think getting off is the most important thing everyone needs to do, at least for a month. A book, okay, so I've started, I'm on one, but this is my, I feel like drones were like cool videos. I've only learned how to make videos to spread the messages and the things that I care about, which right now is technology and this exact topic and how social media has been affecting us, because we're in the middle of it. I feel a duty,
Totally.
like a responsibility that is not, I didn't ask for, but I feel indebted to, the younger people. There's a woman, Sherry Turkle. I'm reading her book. She's called Reclaiming Conversation. Sorry, I'm on one, but it's called
No,
Reclaiming
I love
Conversation.
it.
And in Reclaiming Conversation, she says, and this is light, I would hope it's a quote, but it's not. She said, any old new needs to not be confused with progress, right? As the people who are bringing in the new, we need to be able to step back and see how it's affecting us and see how, and basically learn about it, how it's affecting us, because we haven't done that yet. It's been 10 years we've been on Facebook and we haven't done that yet. And I think we're now getting to the point where we're stepping back and people are starting to do that. You see the Yes Theory videos where they got off social media. That's what really kind of sparked mine. Then I watched a Matt Diavella video that was like about getting off social media. And then I started getting into books. Taylor, I have not read a book in my whole life. Now I'm really going off track, but I haven't read a book in my whole life. When I got off social media, I've read 5 books in a month. And it was and
Wow.
it's and it's content input and output. As a creator, I constantly think about what I'm putting in is what I can put back out. Just like, and I'm learning right now my physical body. That's something I'm really starting to work on right now and like really be aware of. Is that like what you put in generates what it is, right? And so if we're constantly just scrolling, we're in a passive state when we are scrolling, and being in a passive state, and that's why I like creation so much, because creation puts us into a flow. Creation puts us into a, I don't want to say it's like the yin and the yang. I don't want to say alpha and
Yeah.
like, whatever. But
Creation is literally what we're supposed to do with our lives. Like,
yeah,
everyone talks about we need to figure out your life's purpose, and everyone's life's purpose is like this big, grand, great, thing that you need to discover in your life. And that one thing actually drove me fucking crazy because I couldn't
mm,
figure it out. And, through the last couple of years, I've just literally been doing a journey inward and more self awareness and personal development. And I came across the realization in the last, week that all we're supposed to do is figure out who we are, what we love to do, what we're meant to do, and then just do it. And we're falling off that path because they don't teach this to you. They don't tell you how to figure that out. And it's almost like if you try to do it, people think you're weird, so you're judging yourself. But now with social media and where it is right now, you're literally living your life based on other people's judgment of how you should be living your life, which never actually gets you to figuring out what you should really be doing in the beginning. So
Right.
it's like this
Do you mean
cycle
define
where
it? Do you mean it like get a career or like go to college, or because I think the myth
not
of
necessarily.
careerism, like I don't think people our age necessarily. I don't know.
Yeah, when I
I
think
don't
of
think
career, it's just
careers
how
like
you spend your life. Like,
yeah.
I don't think
That's
it
a good
means go to
call.
college, get a degree, get a job. I think it's literally just choosing what it is that you want to do. You know what? I don't actually like the term career at all, now that I'm
Yeah,
thinking about
yeah.
it.
I actually now that you're talking about that, I'm like, what like I think what I define
How,
career as is like a career is like one job that you do until you retire.
forever.
That to me is
Yeah,
like what a career is.
which I think is a broken model anyway, because the
Yeah.
world's moving so fast that jobs are being created and dissolved in a decade. So it's like careers almost don't even exist anymore.
Yeah.
But anyway, tangent. Um, Back to the Great Hack
Great hack.
and British Analytica or Cambridge Analytica. For anyone who hasn't seen the documentary, essentially there were a couple things they highlighted, Cambridge Analytica being one of them as the company that influenced many elections in many different countries and social movements. But the model that they shared in the documentary of how Cambridge Analytica did this with such power and like accuracy, I guess you could say, is just straight up marketing like 101, which I thought was very interesting because how they were doing it is through gathering personality data on users. So essentially creating a customer avatar. And then from that, they gather that on a big data scale. So they go through what they were using was Facebook as the big data scaling of gathering all the data in those different personality types. And then from there, they create segments within all the data that they had just gathered. So now with their avatars, they have a more accurate depiction of a segment that actually they now can target that segment towards that avatar. And then from there, they just create they create content and ads specifically for them. And they do this across mass scale through multiple personalities, multiple segments, and they're using the platform, the advertising platform that's the most popular with the most users, which is Facebook, which also owns all the data. So how they were talking about it is they criminalized Cambridge Analytica in the industry and field that they chose with the clients who hired them for the client's personal agenda, which essentially is marketing in a nutshell. There's a customer with an agenda that they're looking to accomplish by paying for ads to reach the people who they want to buy from them, or they're spreading their message, whatever. That's, to me, that's what Cambridge did. And yes, there were some ethical, moral lines maybe that, they went through because they're now dealing with democracy and politicians and all that kind of stuff. But in a nutshell, that's marketing.
I feel like I feel like you're just like excited like I feel like you're like the girl in the movie where like you're excited that it's working. It's like
Yeah,
a whoa, like there's a genuine excitement. That doesn't mean like you're a bad person. That means like she
yeah,
said she was doing the same kind of stuff, but she just saw results faster with Cambridge Analytica, and it is exciting. But it's I mean, and that it gets down to morals, right?
yeah,
And what it really is, and what I've really been kind of figuring out is that the Facebook feed, all of our feeds are individualized. They're very specific. And there's a guy who, like, where am I going with this? Everything's individualized. We're not seeing the same stuff, right? In history, during when newspapers were the predominant form of communication, basically till the internet, I guess, right? Um, sorry, there's people just popped up. Everyone was seeing the same thing, and was able to make their own decisions based off of the same set of information. We're not dealing with the same set of information anymore. We're dealing with individualized set of informations, which is why we are not feeling empathy towards a opposing side, right? Because we are not seeing, we don't have an understanding of the other person and what they're thinking, what they're seeing, so that we can feel for them and understand them.
Yeah. It's almost like everyone had a very similar story and probably path in life because they have the same things influencing them. But when it comes to now in a digital age, everyone's social media feeds and everything are so personalized that nobody's actually living the same story anymore, which means nobody actually understands what anybody else is actually going through because they're not going through the same thing. It's actually physically almost impossible because of all the user data being used to personalize your view on life, which is really interesting to think about.
And so the question is, are we okay with this? Right? This is the first time
Yeah.
after 10 years that we're stepping back and we're going, is this something that I want? Is this something I'm okay with? And to be quite honest, when I got off social media, my main goal is, how do I share and still do everything that I do, but offline? You know, how do I share my images offline? Like, that's something people don't think about now. And
Yeah.
how do I share my ideas? This is a great forum to do this on the internet. Like, this just happens sporadically. Dude, okay, not gonna go there. I didn't know where I was going, what I was doing. I just drove for 3 hours. My friend's got a concert in Portland, so I'm going to that. My friend sent me a campsite. Like, I didn't know where I was gonna sleep when I started driving. But that's besides the point. The point is, do we want this? And is it moral and ethical? And I think that is going to be a debate of the next 10 years, right? I downloaded my Facebook data. Have you done that? You'd cleaned up everything, but have you downloaded everything? So you can go in and you can
No.
download all of your data, every single message, every single attachment in a message, every single post,
Wow.
and so the thing I've really been wanting is a piece of software that you can upload that to, and that this piece of software will show you what Facebook, like all of these kind of targeted data points that Facebook has on us, which is in that data, which is code right now. And I think that it would be really great. I mean, shit, like even just to have like a scrapbook of your whole Facebook, but like being able to like print that out into like something real, you know? Like
That would be
that's
super
important.
interesting.
My file's 45 gigabytes. At least the last time I downloaded it, like 2 years ago.
Oh
45
my God.
gigs. Yes, like, and I don't
That's
know
crazy.
like what the majority of that is, and that's kind of scary. Also, I was just up in the city I lived in for a while, and I was going to this church, and the church really liked to understand Enneagram. It's like a personality thing or whatever.
Yes,
It's like
I'm very
really weird. Yes.
familiar.
Okay, so I'm now thinking back in the context of the Great Hack. Those are, I think it was like 150 or 200 questions asked in many different ways to very specifically so my thing is, since I didn't pay for their thing, I didn't read the terms of service. So are they selling that data to one of the other companies that are buying data and selling it back to Facebook or to people like Cambridge Analytica? And how much is that worth? Right? How much is 200 data points on my personality? How much is that worth? And I mean, potentially, like if data's more valuable than oil right now, we should be getting paid for our data. That's something. There's this guy, Jaron Lanier. Write this down. He invented VR. He coined the term virtual reality. He was running his company was bought by Google. He currently works for Microsoft as a researcher, and he was there at the beginning of the internet. Why is HTTP? He talks about all those little weird details, and it's really cool to listen to him talk about how they set up the internet and how it was anonymous, right? There's an IP address. It wasn't associated with a name or an identity. And he talks a lot about the formation of the internet. He also talks a lot about social media, and his latest book is really funny. It's titled 10 Reasons You Need to Delete Your Social Media Accounts Right Now. Don't let the title discourage you. It's the best book and it's the shortest too, that lays out the things that the Great Hack talks about, but in a way that's like super easily digestible and from a computer scientist who literally and who worked creating the first AIs. And so he's very, very knowledgeable. He's got a great TED Talk.
What's it called again, and who is it by?
10 Reasons to Delete Your Social Media Accounts Right Now. And his name is Jaron Lanier, Jarron Lanier, Lanier. And
Interesting.
he's one of the people I've really dove into when I got off social media. He calls it the bummer machine, which is it's really great. I can't
Yeah, because
recommend
I
it
know that
enough.
they're talking about social media as the new dopamine, it's the new sugar, it's the new cocaine. So, I mean, that's a topic all in and of itself, strictly based on like the chemical reactions in our brain. But yeah,
Two
I
more things. Can I say
really,
two more things?
yeah, yeah.
So we're okay. So something else that really excites me is that we're the first in our whole human family lineage to be so heavily documented. Like when our great 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 grandparents
True.
look or grandkids look back, like we are going to create the name of our family. We are going to be the first people that they'll know our thoughts. They'll know what we ate for dinner. They'll know like what friends we were with. They know
Oh
where we
shit,
were.
we're
They
like
knew
the
our snaps. They know
founders of
everything.
our new. What? I never
That's what I
thought of
think. What
that.
I think that's what Gary means when he always talks about legacy, 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 right? Is like in recording all of this stuff, and we're the first. Like imagine if like if I like if I could read Facebook like daily thoughts of my ancestors who came through Ellis Island. You know
Like,
what an amazing thing to see and understand. You know, I've also been
that's
thinking about
wild.
doing a project called "If You See This, I'm Dead." It's going to be my greatest piece of art ever. But I'm every year recording a new video addressing people as if I died that year, and I'll probably do it every 2 years. But and I'm rescheduling it on my birthday every year because I want when I pass away for people to like. That's just such an interesting thing. I've been thinking, and this is the second thing is presence versus preservation, right? So being the guy who has always recorded everything, I am naturally a preserver. I want to look back and reflect because I value my experiences so much. However, if I'm not getting paid to really like to work to document like a wedding or this or that or whatever, I have now found myself valuing presence more than preservation. And I think, you know, every time I pull out my phone and take a picture of myself or take a picture of the group of people I'm with, right? I know I want to preserve that moment, but does preserving the moment and taking a second to do that, does that really, you know, take away from the
That
presence that you
happens
can
to
give
me
people?
all. I have that problem a lot when I go on vacations, when I go to an event, a seminar, anything sort of like that. I've noticed myself being more present because I'd rather experience what's happening in person. And when I pull my phone out to record to preserve it, I notice myself detaching from what's actually going on. And it actually dampens my experience in person. So that's very interesting because literally the moments that I wish I had recorded the most were the moments I was most present, which I enjoyed the most because I was present. So it's almost like everyone needs their own personal D-Rock. But on top of that, that's a very, very interesting, look at you. Very interesting conversation and thought.
That's
It's
my
very, very
that's
true.
yeah. I mean, yeah, yeah. That's this
It's
is the thoughts
crazy.
that go through my head because we're the first to experience this, right? And do you feel like that kind of like you feel obligated to one or the other, and when you focus on one, you don't focus on the other? I feel like that's how people feel with using social media as like a tool versus play. It's like that
That's
same kind
true.
of tussle of like, oh, this should be play, but like I also feel like I have to because it's work,
Yeah. And I almost feel like
and
social
we're like
media
in the
is
middle.
like,
So
no, it's true. It's true. I almost think it's like people view social media as the new competition platform. Like when we grew up, the competitions were sports or they were games or they
mm,
were something else. And now social media has become the new competition. Everyone's looking for the most followers. Everyone's looking to be most loved. Everyone's looking for the same thing that all the jocks in high school got, all the captains of the teams, all of the winners of tournaments. Like it's it's almost like people are more interested in how they interact digitally than in physical, which is something that you had kind of mentioned, staying more in the physical, which is why you got off social media, which is something I definitely want to try. And we'll
but
see when
I've
that
also
actually happens.
but and is that a privilege these days? That's like something I kept asking myself a lot,
Mm.
right? Is getting off social media like the new ultimate form of privilege? I mean,
I would
I don't
say
know. It depends
yeah.
on who you are.
In ways, I would say yeah, because think of how many people who have now become famous digitally on social media who wish that they could get away and not have anyone know who they are and like all that kind of stuff. Like the peace of mind that they can get in the clarity of nature or by themselves or in solitude is now what's more valuable. And I guess that also
Right.
changes per person. Like you never know. Does anyone
Yeah,
have any
definitely.
questions watching this
Yeah.
about the topic? Because that would be super cool to go into as well. I notice Jose keeps
Yeah.
mentioning a bunch of stuff, all the bubbles. What else did he say? There's a video 9F, a guy who had this pointed out, stacks of papers. Is that about the data, the individual data? Maybe, probably.
Yeah, maybe.
Um, but yeah, so I think this whole thing is super interesting, and I think like you're right. It's going to be another decade till we actually understand what is happening. Like all this data has been gathered now for a decade, but now it's like what we're doing with it now is going to be not surveyed, studied in another decade. Like how we're
Yeah.
reacting to it.
Jaron brings, and I don't want to speak on it too much, but Jaron talks a lot about how the use of our data in being targeted to us is a interesting way to address universal basic income. I don't want to speak too much on it because I don't understand it completely, but it's a very interesting thought. And that's something when I got off social media, I started focusing more on YouTube, generally just because that's, I think, my platform, but also because, they'll pay you, be it a little bit, they'll pay you, right? And just the fact that there's built in that value trade of I create value on your platform, I get a return, be it small, is, important.
Something. Yeah, because they're basically making money off you documenting your life and your interactions socially. So, I never thought about that. Yeah, YouTube does pay you for your ads. No other platform does.
Right. And but we should look at this question in a sec. But when I also got off social media, I found myself. So I like to share everything, highs, lows, and when I got off, I found myself sitting and feeling more as opposed to outletting and then feeling the response to my feeling. So I'm actually sitting in my feelings, Drake, uh, rather than sharing them and then not feeling them anymore because I've outletted them. Right? It's like a dam. You want to like let the water build up and build up and build up before you open the spillway. You don't want to just open a spillway and let it stay on, like half full. And so
Yeah, that's interesting.
I've been feeling my experiences a lot more. I need to make a video about this. I've been back on social media for
Yeah.
like a month now, but I need to really contextualize all these thoughts and like I fucking even filming right now is helping. It's nice to talk to people who like get it and like understand
Uh-huh.
and I also think it's interesting to see who gets defensive, and I think I think because it is political, and I think they did make a point. Like the girl in the movie, her name's Jessica, was it? She
Brittany?
was Brittany. Yes, she was the Obama campaign Facebook manager, right? So it doesn't matter the political parties that are it's happening with because it's happened to both already. It's not a political thing, I think, right now. It's a moral and ethical
Yep.
and it's a moral and ethical thing. It's not a political thing. And it's
I
interesting to
totally
see who
agree.
gets defensive on that.
Totally agree. And one thing I was just thinking about what you were kind of mentioning was being able to relate with other people who think the same way has been something that people have found extremely hard to find except via social media. So even though social media's got all these things about it right now, it's also the one thing that's been able to connect me and you and other people like us together who have
Right.
similar thoughts. And that only happens through marketing and social media connecting other people. So it's like the original idea for Facebook was to connect people together, which it has done.
But
And it
at the
seems
same
to be
time, it's compartmentalized.
yep, it's now separating people into these little niches, these little personalities, which it's hilarious. I'm actually curious about this. How many people in this Facebook group with the same ideas and, ambitions and things, how many of us are seeing the same ads? And can we
Mm.
compartmentalize our own personality to see how people are targeting us? It's
Mm.
So that's kind of what I'm thinking
Well, and
about
that's
now.
also,
Like,
that's all, yeah. And going off of that too, I think is if people are trying to, like, one of the countries, it was the one with the Indians and the blacks, and they targeted the
Turks and
um,
Caicos, I think.
Turks. Yes, thank you. Let's try to be politically correct here. They realized that the Indian kids would listen to their parents more and would, you know, do what their parents said, and they created the, like, we're not going to vote uprising on the other side. Um, the youth is always the people who need to be persuaded, right? The youth are we have the most numbers, right? Younger people, and
We're also the most
we
persuadable.
true because we haven't formed our own opinions, which I think getting off the internet is a quintessential to that. That's like a coming of it's like a rite of passage. Like I literally think it's that important. Um, but you know, thinking about, like, after the last election, I was kind of thinking, and understanding Cambridge Analytica, I'm thinking, okay, we are the kids who evolved the internet. We create all the content. What if there was like a renegade group, like huge group of people who just literally did the same thing, but just flooded the, I mean, I don't know. People make memes all the time. I don't know. That's like a pipe dream, I guess. But it's like, what if we all just created content about what we thought and what our opinions were, right? And people really were able to be persuaded by that. Not persuaded, but even just like the planting the seed of an idea. And I hope that's what this video does, and what our conversations can do is just like plant a seed, right? And then it's not up to us to water it or watch it grow. You know, it's really up to the person of their curiosity. And every time they peer into the tunnel of curiosity, a little bit of water goes on the seed, and hopefully then that can transpire into something that will make a change. Because I'm like freaked out for humanity. And that's why I haven't said anything, is because, you know, social, for as much as I've realized I really don't, I'm questioning the ethical and moral sides of social media. I have to remember that, like, I wouldn't have had a career in the drone industry if I didn't make a name for myself on social media super young. You know, I wouldn't have photography, all this stuff, right? Like, I owe a lot of what I have to social media, so I can't just say it's bad, right? And so now my
Totally.
understanding is it's how we use it, right? It's
Totally.
how we're using it, and it's not using us, right? And I've fallen right back into the same habits with using social media, you know, after getting off and back on, which I'm catching myself, and that's good. But I think we need to do that at scale.
I totally agree. And that's actually the last thing I wrote down in like in little notes was we have to take 100% responsibility for where we are in our lives and also what we're flooding ourselves with in our feeds. So it's I agree. There's always going to be good and bad with everything that we do. It's the laws of life, like the contrast, the yin and the yang. And
Yeah,
and social media, it's going to be the same thing. How we use it is our responsibility. I think if you are interacting with all the negative and you're being played into all the hype and the ads and the propaganda of whatever, it's that's your choice on how you're consuming and being impressionable. And I think that's another thing was maybe instead of, social media being all about judgment, we turn it into journaling, which is more about expression and less about the judging. So it's almost like if we changed how we use social media, we're being responsible for how we're interacting with it and what's being flooded with it, which would then in turn, if everyone changed how they use social media, it would change how people do the ads too. Because marketing always changes with the times. Marketing is always the same principles deep down, they just change the tactics. So it's like
right.
if we change everything to be positive, people are going to create more positive businesses, more positive products, more positive, you know, perceptions on things. Marketers are now going to
Do
want
you
to
think?
promote more of what people want, which is positivity.
Right. I mean, I think there's certain things like Soul Pancake and Great Big Story, and there are things that are starting to do that, and
Yep, I've started to
they
see it
don't
too.
they don't necessarily spread as much as things that are negative, you know.
I
And
agree.
I would love formulate a question off of kind of what you were saying, because it was really good. Like, what that's something I've been trying to work on too. Is like everything that I've been thinking, I need to ask it with a question, so it's not just like craziness in my head. Whoa, what were you saying? I totally forgot. Jose had a really good question. Look at that.
Yeah,
Go to
there's a
that.
bunch of questions here.
Yeah, yeah.
Jose
I like
was
this one.
having a conversation. Yeah, go ahead.
I like the Jonathan one. Is how much of these concepts do you, excuse me, do you feel are there to scare and move an agenda versus a healthy awakening to what is happening?
I personally think almost all the ads are fear-based to get you to take an action that's reactive. I think if it was more about healthy awakening, spiritual awakening, happiness online, we would be in a totally different place. So we wouldn't be scared right now. We would be enlightened.
But I think the first step to getting to enlightenment is like a shock, right? Whether it's like a near-death experience or like the understanding that we are very persuadable based off of people's understandings of us by information we're giving them for free that's being collected at scale. And
Totally.
and
And
I think maybe that question is, how much of these concepts do you feel are there to scare and move an agenda? To me, that's in the form of the movie. That's political, and I think both sides have done it, and I think the movie touched on that. I think people have to really critically think and go, oh, she was the campaign manager for Facebook for Obama, and she was also business development for Cambridge Analytica, who was working for the Trump campaign. And so I don't see there being a necessary agenda with this being like the left trying to make the right look bad, or if the vice versa. I don't think there's an agenda behind that. But I do think a shock is needed to awaken people and for people to ask questions.
I'm glad you said that because literally Tony Robbins talks about how you change and how you change a person, their life literally starts with a, a break in your habit. And how he calls it, oh my God, I'm going to totally forget the term he uses, but essentially it's breaking your pattern, is what he
Yeah.
says, which is, I think, the same thing as shock. Like any change that needs to happen, you first have to interrupt your old pattern to then be able to stop, adjust, think about it, and then be like, okay, yeah, let's do this. Um, totally 1000% agree. That's like the first step in the whole awakening thing. And I think this conversation, for anyone who starts to think like differently, that's part of the break in their pattern already.
Yeah, and like
What other
getting
questions
pissed
do we
off, like a
have?
healthy pissed off.
Yes, exactly.
I'm like always such a happy person that I'm like learning the value of like getting upset.
That's awesome. Like I would say like 90% of the time, like I'm always happy. It's only the slight 10% that like after enough build up, it's like, all right, gotta let it out. All
Yeah. There's a Facebook setting where you
right.
can turn off your data being access to. Yeah, that's in the access apps. And you can click which apps you have access and don't. So like certain things I sign in with
Yeah.
Facebook, which I'm trying to migrate all that off. I've left like a few of those that have access. But
What have you been doing in your time since you cut social media off? I'm curious. How have you been spending it?
well, I read 5 books. Uh, and one
That's
led
awesome.
into another. So it was like Digital Minimalism by Cal Newport. Then from that one, I read Revenge of the Analog. And, it was the comeback of records, the comeback of photo books, or the comeback of, a bunch of physical things. And that's what inspired me to start figuring out, okay, how do we share offline? And how do I make, are my photos online not worth anything? But are my photos printed in a book with some ideas next to them that people can sit down and consume? That's valuable. And so it's weird. It's the same thing, but one has monetary value and one is expected because we all have to play in this game of the internet, and it's expected. It's not like people don't see it as a thing of value necessarily
Yeah. And
if you're
until
just
somebody
using it on
creates an
social.
experience to take it more physical again versus being digital, like it's not going to change. And it's like the same thing in the apparel industry. I think is the same thing in technology. What's old is new again. Like I think it will eventually turn to people want more physical experiences versus digital. Digital is always going to be there. Like there's no if, ands, or buts about that until they create something new where everything's virtual instead of digital. Like, so yeah, I
Well, yeah,
think
because
it's gonna be,
we're confusing. Well, no, we're not even confusing, but like we're supplementing intimacy with the feeling of connection, and we're confusing like connection with intimacy. And I mean intimacy, not like even romantic, but just like with your friends, talking about your life. Like when's the last time someone like asked you what you did on the weekend? You know, because you were putting it out there and they already know, which is good and bad, right? That gives people the
yeah,
opportunity to ask more pointed questions. But in my experience, it just, you don't have to talk about your life. Everyone just has a general understanding. And is that a good thing? I was talking to someone about that, and they were like, wow, that's how high school felt. Like I was around everyone, but I never was like, how are you? Because they were around and I thought they were okay.
yeah. Which brings
It
up
gets
an
out, it gets
interesting point, like how much documenting is too much? Is there a thing?
oversharing. That's a
So it's like
very
if you
good
put everything
question.
out there, it doesn't create anything for a physical interaction with people who already know you.
Okay, so this is also, it may be interesting, and maybe not exactly on that, but it's the same thing. So I'm into drones, and the drone Instagram community is very tight. And I was in Bozeman, Montana, uh, and I hit up, or I was like posting where I was, and then someone, this girl Danielle, she hit me up and was like, "Hey, are you coming through Flathead Valley, which is on it's in what is it, Wyoming? Anyway, Montana. I don't know. I'm confused right now. But point is, I met her on Instagram. We followed each other for the last 5 years, and then she literally, we went and got drinks. So like we met in real life first, but then she took me to her house, and she was like, "Here you go. My house is yours. Feel free for anything. I'm gonna go stay at my boyfriend's house." And I was like, "Dang! Like social media really like." Built up this level of trust that I could meet someone for the first time in 3 hours. They would feel comfortable leaving me alone in their home with all of their things. And
Yes.
like
I've
that
had the
is
same
so cool.
experiences. Yeah. So it's like, where is it? It's just a double-edged sword. Honestly, there's so much good and creation that's come out of social media. And then, there's always that other side of, things that go wrong, go negative, get blasted, get shared, that just are a spread of not goodness. So I think it goes back to 100% responsibility. What are you putting out? What are you ingesting? And what are you interacting with?
Yeah.
There's so
I
much
was
good that
saying,
comes out of it.
yeah, there is. It's just in how we use it and how we let it affect us. And
Totally.
gone from a that's gone from an unconscious, I think we were competent of it. I think it was an unconscious competence. We knew it was just, we just kept it unconscious, right? And now with these movies that are shaking people and awakening them, now it's like a conscious competence, a conscious understanding of what's happening. And so I hope that now when people search something on the internet and they get an ad for it 5 minutes later, they understand that that's a Facebook pixel and that that's tracking, and like, and as long as it's conscious and we're aware of the, how the platforms are doing what they're doing, which is great. That's actually, I think, an interesting market is like being a marketer, but translating how marketing works to people who are laymen in a
That
way so
would be
that
a
they can
really smart,
understand, in a way so that they would be
yeah.
able to understand like how this stuff is working and how, but like basic, but like not too basic, I don't know. That's a good piece for micro content that then goes into a bigger piece of content that has everything. Blah, blah, blah. Come on, TDE fam, let's
Yes. All
go.
right, digital era, we got to create this YouTube channel, talks about
I
marketing,
mean,
gets everyone informed. For real
hopefully,
though,
like that's something I'm not necessarily like super interested in, but like, oh, I think that's needed. That's needed to awaken people to whatever this is.
understanding
I
and the
like saying,
knowledge and everything, for sure. Yeah, what Santana said
yeah,
about she can't read books
yeah.
online, totally agree.
I,
I have to buy the
I,
physical
I,
copies.
I can't. I never started reading books online. And so, yeah, physical copies are amazing. I'm like underlining and highlighting and writing notes.
Yes!
And at the end of
I'm
every
the
book,
same
I've been
way.
writing on the blank page. I'm like, all right, here's my download of like how I feel about the book, the date that I finished it, like because that's
Oh,
important to me. Like
really?
those are big goals. Yeah.
That's cool. I've never thought of doing
I
that.
have them in my car. I have a library. It's on my passenger side, under my seat in the back seat. I've got my little library there with all my books.
That's so
Should I
cool.
go up to my car?
Yeah. Go show us. What books you got?
Keep reading questions. Okay. Hold on,
Yeah.
I'm gonna talk to my camera for a sec.
Jose said awareness and transparency. Like, yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think the more transparent we are, which by the way is what people are craving on social media anyway, is a more authentic experience. So the more that we put that out, the more I think people also can actually get in touch with themselves and who they are. And I think something that's important that I think a lot of the generation younger than us hasn't really dealt with is being able to form their own opinions because all they've ever been is influenced by other, things and people. So it's like, how do you learn how to form your own opinions as well? Crazy.
Okay, hold on here. Gotta hop a wall.
If anyone's got any other talking points or questions, let me know. Comment. I'm curious, Jose, what's your opinion on this whole topic? Put that in the comments. I don't think you've watched the video yet, but it's definitely your world if you're in marketing anyway.
Okay, I'm back. Dude, when I got here, there was no one here. Now there's like so many people.
Oh, wow.
It's funny. It's a good spot.
Where are
It's
you?
good. This is a state park. I forget what it's called. This is, oh man, the Columbia River. This is the river that Lewis and Clark explored the west coast of the United States on.
Oh, that's cool.
Here, I'm gonna set down my camera. But this is what I've been traveling in.
Oh, that's so cool.
That's like my room. And
That's
then,
your tent.
yeah, and then in here, let's see, a bunch of stuff, ukulele, but I have this big battery.
Oh,
So I've
wow.
it's at 79% right now, and that battery is being relayed back to, oh, I need to go get that can. This, which is a full fridge. I mean, I've got kombuchas,
What?
Trader Joe's, like
That's so
everything.
cool.
So that's sitting at 34 degrees. It's getting a little hot, but
Oh my God. Trent, you should make an entire blog or vlog about how literally to turn your car into your home and just travel and explore and go on a journey of no social media to figure yourself out. Like you should totally
so,
create like a series on that and a blog.
what do I do? I feel like I have to do these big grandiose things, and actually just today, and I'm telling you and everyone so you guys can hold me to it, but I was like, okay, I'm actually gonna make a piece of content today. It doesn't need to be like super long or this big cinematic thing. It literally started being like, I don't know what I'm doing today, where I'm going, but I'm gonna go somewhere, and then now all these pieces are like coming together, and we just did this whole thing. We've got like, we've been on this for like an hour, and like, it's just,
Damn.
I'm trying to, yes, thank you for the encouragement. Because
I would love to
sometimes I
watch
don't, there's a girl, Katie Carney, she inspires me a lot. She's been living in her car for the last 4 years, and she makes tons of really good videos. But yeah, I mean, even like how to eat, how do I power, how does the tent work,
Yeah, simple things, because those are questions that I would have totally asked. Like, I'm thinking, how are you affording to be gone all this time and on the road? What are you doing to make a living? How are you eating? How are you sleeping? What are
yeah,
the realities of how that's like? The
yeah,
transparency in
what are
it.
the shitty parts?
Yes, what are the shitty
Because
parts? Like,
there is, like, you stay in the tent, you leave your wallet up there, you close it all up, you get to a national park, and you're like, uh-oh, where's my national park pass? And then you're like, okay, hold on, let me just pull over and like open my whole tent and everything. There's little things that are like funny.
see,
I'm gonna make
that's
little comedy
funny.
videos.
Yes. So then it comes back to the presence versus preservation. Like, how present do you want to
That's
be
the
in this
whole thing.
journey?
Yes, Taylor, exactly. As I'm like, yeah, I'm like, fuck yeah, I'm on this journey. Like, it's so awesome. But at the same time, I'm like,
You want to
yeah, I'm like, let's be
document it.
present. But then and it's
Yeah.
this whole thing. So I've been documenting the whole time. I just am holding it all, and I can make one big long thing. But I should be
What
making micro
Jose?
pieces. I
You
should
should,
be doing
and you
both.
know what? Maybe scheduling time for that. Like today, I'm like spending time just for like inflection. Tomorrow is a time for preservation. Like maybe just
Mm.
having certain days where you're like,
Oh
today
my
I'm not
gosh,
going to do
that's
anything
such a good
digital,
idea. That's
and
so
then today
good.
I'm going to do all digital.
Today I'm gonna go through all my hard drives and just sit there and feel everything from every minute of time I've ever recorded. And then yeah, then there's days where I have to go out and record. Oh, is there any more asking questions? Oh my gosh. This is
I
fun. This is like my
know,
first like actual fun like
I
Facebook
know.
thing.
I love it.
It is
Jose said Instagram dual live podcast. You can promote his social handle. What do you mean by dual live podcast on Instagram?
You're
Are you just
recording all
talking about
this?
like, so it's going to be posted on Facebook, and then once it's posted, I can download the actual clip. I wasn't
Cool. In
able
HD.
to record it. Yeah, I wasn't able to
Yeah.
record it on my computer because it's on my phone that I'm doing this.
Dude, this is so cool.
So,
Okay, so next time, if there's a next time, you have a
yes.
camera, right? You've got
Yeah.
like a flip camera. Yeah, yeah. Remember those flip cameras, those little ones that were just like had a little screen above. Anyway,
Yes.
2008. I love dating things. That's like my new favorite thing. But okay, so I recorded here. Then you can record you there. See, we got to figure out like how to show people like how to make cool pieces of content like this with people we met on the internet. We are the prime example.
Yes.
All of this is. This whole
Yes.
group is. We've all met on the internet, and I think that's really cool. And I think
I
the stories
know.
of how everyone got here is really interesting.
That's actually something that I
That
really
would,
wanted to do. I wanted to create a TDE podcast where literally it's everyone's stories kind of just compiled into a podcast of what they're currently working on, and then like revisiting it in like a year and just doing it
can we?
again with the same people, and almost like a docu-series of the people of TDE.
Okay, so let's do that. Let's also so people can submit pictures of themselves. We'll make a book. You'll be able to write something about it. So you have like a 2-page spread, and then we can like update it every year. I don't know, physical things. And then I've been thinking about that too. Like, what if I make a photo book and then I pair that with a podcast so that you just like stare at these photos and just sit there and listen and like that's the experience,
Oh, I
right?
love that.
That's what that book, The Revenge of the Analog, really made me think about. Is like how to create experiences based, and that is valuable more than a scroll and seeing something on Facebook or on Instagram.
Because you're
That's
basically
not really that
creating a
valuable.
physical experience with virtual products.
A little bit, yeah. There's definitely a physical
bit.
magazine that I prefer. Here, actually, let me show you.
And you're
I have
in
it my-
person instead of on the screen.
Right. And you're like hearing the people too. I have samples. Yeah, here they are.
That would be super interesting.
Or, nope, that's a letter from someone else. Okay, here. So, let me flip my camera around for a sec. And it's not windy, I'll bring them out here. So, in that book, they talk about the revenge of the analog and physical things. So these are literal like newspapers that you can get, and this is like a whole test sheet that shows you that.
Oh,
Then they
that's
have
cool.
smaller ones. These smaller ones are what I'm starting to work on right now, because they're like super, they're like a nice size, and then you just like stick that in a small little thing. And then there's full size newspapers that fold into 4s. And I mean, let me tell you, like so you have 3 different sizes. Super sweet. And
Those
honestly,
are really cool.
as I've been traveling, I've had printed photos, and I've been sharing them with people. So like, I don't know, in Montana, I stayed at these people's house who I met that night, and before I left, I was like, here, thank you, I appreciate you. Here's like a gift, and it meant a lot, And so and I was just thinking today, like how to use those as a tool, right? If I like really shared my whole story and whatnot, like how to use those as a tool to get people interested in your story in person, because that's the best thing ever. I mean, I've been thinking about it in online dating too. Like, dude, a profile versus meeting someone in person. I mean, there's so many more data points you can have, like with everything, right? And it just makes so much more sense to keep things in person and to. Yeah,
I
that's
could
my whole
not
dilemma
agree
right
more. Damn, I feel like we could go on for like hours. We should definitely do this again, though.
We should,
sure.
yeah. Except you should come, or we should meet somewhere. We should just do destination podcast.
Yes. Ooh, that is an Awesome idea. I love, everyone's got the same background in their podcast. Like, no, let's go to a different state every time.
Look, hold on. Oh wait, let me show you two more things. This is my clothes area, but also this is whatever. There's a bunch of books.
Love it.
And then what was I gonna get? Oh, I was gonna show you. I have my recorder right here. I mean, girl, I'm like ready to go.
Ooh, you got all the tech.
So I'm using this at a concert tonight to get audio to then record video with the camera and give my friends a gift. And their gift
I
is
love
getting
it.
me into the concert for free.
You should create a tech pack, like through Amazon or something, of like all the equipment that you have. Like everything that you've literally been using and compiled that you, like if somebody wanted tomorrow to begin the same journey that you're on of creating content, recording, doing the whole digital nomad life in a car, like fuck, even like post what kind of car you have, like on it.
Yeah.
Purchase a Mazda or whatever. But I think it would be really cool because now I'm curious what actual, you know, how much you've downsized, what are the essentials, and then what tech you're using versus the stuff that you're using like to camp. Yeah, like that's super interesting for me. And you could always do affiliate links too. Like if somebody wanted to like put a tent on their car, they found out the idea from you. Oh, and then a direct link to Amazon, then you get a commission, like affiliate, whatever. Like I would totally do that.
All right, I really hope you enjoyed that conversation. I had a lot of fun talking with Taylor about it. If you want to kind of be involved with people like us, Taylor has a Facebook group called TDE, the Digital Era, and I really suggest that you go in there. There's a really good group of people. And I hope you just enjoyed this conversation. It's there's a lot of topics in here that I really believe strongly about, and I believe that we need to be talking about them, and we need to be as a society always questioning why we're using everything and how we're using everything and the morals and ethics behind that. Anyway, thanks for watching this one. If you stuck through to the end, you deserve a medal. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.